2,500 years ago, a Chinese military strategist named Sun Tzu wrote something that would forever change how we understand power, influence, and success. He said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." These 13 words contain more wisdom about human psychology and strategic thinking than entire libraries of modern self-help books. You might think this principle only applies to ancient battlefields or corporate boardrooms, but you would be wrong. This strategy is being used every single day by the most successful people on the planet, and they are using it to accumulate wealth, influence, and power at levels that would have been unimaginable to previous generations. The beautiful thing about this principle is that it works whether you are trying to negotiate a salary increase, build a business empire, or simply navigate the complex social dynamics of everyday life. The reason this principle is so powerful is that it exploits a fundamental flaw in human psychology. We make assumptions based on appearances. We judge books by their covers. We underestimate the quiet person in the corner and overestimate the loudest voice in the room. Sun Tzu understood this human tendency and turned it into a weapon of strategic advantage. The psychology behind strategic deception. Before we dive into specific examples of how modern titans of industry have applied this principle, we need to understand why it works so effectively. Human beings are pattern recognition machines. We constantly scan our environment for threats and opportunities, and we make rapid judgments based on limited information. This served our ancestors well when they needed to quickly identify whether a rustling bush contained a predator or prey, but it creates blind spots that can be exploited in modern competitive environments. When someone appears weak, our brains automatically categorize them as less of a threat. We let our guard down. We become more willing to share information, more likely to underestimate their capabilities, and more prone to making strategic errors because we do not believe we need to bring our full attention and resources to bear against them. Conversely, when someone appears strong, we become more cautious, more defensive, and more likely to avoid direct confrontation. This natural human tendency means that the appearance of strength can often be more valuable than actual strength, at least in the short term. The genius of Sun Tzu's principle is that it recognizes both sides of this psychological coin. It teaches us to use the appearance of weakness as a tool for gathering intelligence and creating opportunities, while also using the appearance of strength as a shield to protect ourselves when we are most vulnerable. Warren Buffett, the master of financial humility. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people in human history, has built his entire public persona around appearing humble, simple, and almost folksy. He lives in the same modest house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drives older cars, wears simple suits, and presents himself as just a regular guy from Omaha who happens to be good at picking stocks. This carefully cultivated image of simplicity and humility serves multiple strategic purposes. First, it makes other investors, business leaders, and even government regulators less likely to view him as a threat. When you appear to be a harmless grandfather figure rather than a ruthless financial predator, people are more willing to do business with you, more likely to share valuable information with you, and less likely to organize opposition against you. Second, Buffett's humble appearance allows him to ask seemingly naive questions that more obviously sophisticated investors might be embarrassed to ask. He can probe for weaknesses in business models, explore potential risks, and gather competitive intelligence, all while maintaining the facade of being a simple, curious old man who just wants to understand how things work. Third, this image helps him in negotiations. When people underestimate your sophistication and intelligence, they often agree to terms that they would never accept if they fully understood who they were dealing with. Buffett has acquired entire companies at favorable prices partly because the sellers did not fully appreciate the strategic mind they were negotiating against. The brilliance of Buffett's approach is that his appearance of weakness is not entirely false. He genuinely does live simply, he genuinely does ask basic questions, and he genuinely does approach investments with a kind of folksy common sense. But beneath this simple exterior lies one of the most sophisticated financial minds in history, backed by resources that could reshape entire industries. Buffett appears weak when he is strong by downplaying his wealth, influence, and sophistication. This allows him to operate with less scrutiny, gather better information, and negotiate better deals than would be possible if he presented himself as the financial titan he actually is. Jeff Bezos, the art of playing small while building big. Jeff Bezos spent the first several years of Amazon's existence appearing to be weak, even when he had grand ambitions that would have terrified his competitors if they had fully understood them. In the early days, Amazon was presented as just an online bookstore, a simple digital version of the neighborhood bookshop. Bezos appeared on television looking awkward and slightly out of place, laughing nervously and presenting himself as just another tech entrepreneur with a modest idea. This appearance of weakness served multiple strategic purposes. Traditional book retailers like Barnes & Noble and Borders did not take Amazon seriously enough to mount an effective early response. They saw Bezos as a minor irritant rather than an existential threat, which gave Amazon precious time to build its infrastructure, refine its processes, and accumulate the resources necessary for the massive expansion that would follow. Meanwhile, Bezos was using this period of being underestimated to gather intelligence about the retail industry, experiment with different business models, and build relationships with suppliers who might not have been willing to work with Amazon if they had understood the scale of disruption that was coming. The genius of Bezos's approach was that he appeared to be focusing on books while actually building the infrastructure for the everything store. His competitors saw a bookstore and prepared to compete with a bookstore, while Bezos was actually building the foundation for a retail empire that would eventually sell everything from groceries to cloud computing services. Even after Amazon had become clearly successful, Bezos continued to use strategic appearances of weakness. He would appear at congressional hearings looking uncomfortable and slightly out of his depth, even though he was actually one of the most sophisticated business strategists of his generation. This appearance of awkwardness made regulators and competitors less likely to view him as a manipulative mastermind, even as he was systematically dismantling entire industries. Bezos understood that appearing weak while strong allows you to move more freely, make bolder moves, and build more aggressively than would be possible if everyone understood the true scope of your ambitions and capabilities. Elon Musk, the calculated chaos strategy. Elon Musk has mastered a particularly sophisticated version of appearing weak when strong through what appears to be chaos, but is actually carefully calculated unpredictability. Musk often presents himself as impulsive, scattered, and prone to making questionable decisions on social media. He appears to be constantly on the verge of self-destruction, tweeting controversial statements, making bold promises that seem impossible to keep, and generally appearing to be his own worst enemy. This appearance of weakness and instability serves several strategic purposes. First, it causes his competitors to underestimate his strategic capabilities. When someone appears to be chaotic and impulsive, other people assume that they lack the discipline and focus necessary for long-term strategic thinking. This causes competitors to prepare for the wrong kind of competition. Second, Musk's apparent chaos creates cover for genuinely strategic moves. When someone appears to be acting randomly, their genuinely calculated actions become harder to detect and counter. Musk can make aggressive competitive moves while his opponents are distracted by his latest controversial tweet or seemingly impulsive announcement. Third, this strategy allows Musk to attract talent and resources that might not otherwise be available to him. Many brilliant engineers and executives are attracted to the idea of working for someone who appears to be a visionary maverick rather than a calculating corporate strategist. The appearance of chaos and authenticity can be more appealing than obvious strategic sophistication. The reality is that beneath Musk's apparent chaos lies extraordinary strategic discipline. Tesla, SpaceX, and his other ventures have achieved remarkable success through careful planning, systematic execution, and sophisticated competitive strategy. But by appearing chaotic and impulsive, Musk makes it harder for competitors to predict and counter his moves. Musk also demonstrates the other side of Sun Tzu's principle by appearing strong when he is actually weak. During Tesla's production hell period, when the company was genuinely struggling to manufacture cars at scale and was burning through cash at an alarming rate, Musk projected confidence and strength. He made bold public statements about production targets, appeared at high-profile events, and generally maintained the appearance that everything was under control even when the company was closer to bankruptcy than most people realized. This appearance of strength during a period of genuine weakness bought Tesla the time and breathing room it needed to solve its production problems and achieve genuine strength. If Musk had appeared as weak as Tesla actually was during that period, the company might have collapsed under the weight of lost confidence from investors, customers, and employees. Mark Zuckerberg, the evolution of strategic perception. Mark Zuckerberg's career demonstrates how the application of Sun Tzu's principle can evolve over time as circumstances change. In Facebook's early days, Zuckerberg appeared weak almost by accident. He was young, inexperienced, and often appeared uncomfortable in public settings. He wore hoodies to important meetings, stumbled through interviews, and generally appeared to be in over his head. This natural appearance of weakness served Facebook well during its crucial early growth period. Established tech companies like Google and Microsoft did not take Facebook seriously enough to mount effective competitive responses. Traditional media companies saw Zuckerberg as a college kid playing with a social networking toy rather than someone who was building a platform that would fundamentally reshape how information flows through society. Meanwhile, Zuckerberg was using this period of being underestimated to build one of the most sophisticated data collection and analysis operations in human history. While his competitors saw a simple social networking site, Zuckerberg was actually constructing a massive surveillance and influence machine that would eventually give Facebook unprecedented power over public discourse and consumer behavior. As Facebook grew and Zuckerberg accumulated real power, he began to face the challenge of appearing strong when dealing with genuine weaknesses. When Facebook faced criticism over privacy violations, election interference, and its role in spreading misinformation, Zuckerberg had to project strength and control even while the company was genuinely struggling to address these complex problems. Zuckerberg's congressional testimony demonstrates masterful application of appearing strong while weak. He appeared calm, prepared, and in control even though Facebook was facing existential threats to its business model and regulatory environment. By projecting competence and cooperation, he helped Facebook weather storms that might have destroyed a company whose leader appeared weak and defensive. The transformation of Zuckerberg's public persona from awkward college student to polished executive illustrates how successful people must adapt their application of Sun Tzu's principle as their circumstances change. Early in his career, natural weakness served his strategic purposes. Later, he had to consciously project strength to protect the empire he had built. The subtle art of competitive intelligence. One of the most powerful applications of appearing weak when strong is in the gathering of competitive intelligence. When people underestimate you, they are much more likely to reveal information that they would keep secret if they understood your true capabilities and intentions. Consider how venture capitalists often present themselves as helpful mentors and advisors to entrepreneurs, downplaying their own strategic sophistication and competitive instincts. This appearance of being supportive partners rather than calculating investors encourages entrepreneurs to share detailed information about their business models, competitive strategies, and market insights. The most successful venture capitalists use this information not just to evaluate investment opportunities, but to identify market trends, spot competitive threats to their existing portfolio companies, and sometimes even to fund direct competitors to entrepreneurs who have shared too much information with them. Similarly, successful entrepreneurs often appear to be seeking advice and mentorship from established industry leaders, when they are actually gathering intelligence about competitive strategies, supplier relationships, and market opportunities. By appearing weak and in need of guidance, they can extract valuable information from people who might otherwise view them as threats. This dynamic plays out constantly in corporate environments as well. Successful executives often downplay their ambitions and capabilities when dealing with peers and superiors, allowing them to gather information about organizational politics, strategic directions, and potential opportunities for advancement. The key to using this strategy effectively is to ensure that your appearance of weakness is believable and consistent. People are sophisticated at detecting deception, so your performance must be subtle and authentic. The goal is not to appear incompetent, but rather to appear less threatening and sophisticated than you actually are. The timing of revelation. One of the most critical aspects of Sun Tzu's principle is understanding when to drop the mask and reveal your true strength. Appearing weak when strong is not a permanent strategy. There comes a moment when you must demonstrate your capabilities to achieve your objectives. The most successful practitioners of this strategy are masters of timing. They maintain their appearance of weakness just long enough to gather the information they need, position themselves advantageously, and prepare for decisive action. Then, at the optimal moment, they reveal their true capabilities and strike. Amazon provides a perfect example of this timing. Bezos maintained the appearance of being focused on books for just long enough to build the infrastructure necessary to compete across multiple retail categories. Then, once Amazon had achieved sufficient scale and capability, the company rapidly expanded into new markets, revealing the true scope of Bezos's ambitions. The revelation was devastating to competitors who had prepared to compete with a bookstore rather than a comprehensive retail platform. By the time they understood what they were actually facing, Amazon had achieved advantages in scale, infrastructure, and market position that would be almost impossible to overcome. Similarly, successful individuals often spend years appearing less ambitious and capable than they actually are, using this time to build skills, accumulate resources, and position themselves for advancement. Then, when the right opportunity presents itself, they demonstrate capabilities that surprise everyone around them and achieve rapid advancement that seems to come from nowhere. The key is to ensure that you are actually building real strength during your period of appearing weak. The strategy only works if there is genuine capability behind the facade. If you spend too long appearing weak without building actual strength, you may find yourself trapped in others' perceptions of your limitations. The reverse application, appearing strong when weak. While much of our focus has been on appearing weak when strong, the reverse application of Sun Tzu's principle is equally important and powerful. There are many situations where appearing strong when you are actually weak can buy you the time and space necessary to develop genuine strength. Consider how many successful startups have used this strategy during their early, vulnerable stages. They project confidence, stability, and capability to customers, investors, and potential employees even when they are actually operating on shoestring budgets with uncertain futures. This appearance of strength helps them attract the resources and talent they need to achieve genuine stability and success. The key to making this work is to ensure that your appearance of strength is believable and that you are using the time and resources it buys you to actually become strong. If you project strength without building real capabilities, you will eventually be exposed, and the consequences can be severe. Donald Trump's early real estate career provides an interesting example of this strategy. During periods when his financial position was actually quite precarious, Trump maintained an appearance of wealth and success through careful management of his public image. He appeared at high-profile events, made bold statements about his wealth and success, and generally projected an image of someone who was thriving even during periods when his businesses were struggling. This appearance of strength helped Trump maintain access to credit, attract business partners, and preserve the reputation that was essential to his business model. By appearing strong during weak periods, he was able to survive financial difficulties that might have destroyed someone who appeared as vulnerable as they actually were. The entertainment industry provides countless examples of performers and creators who have used this strategy to launch and sustain their careers. They project confidence and success even during periods of uncertainty and struggle, using this appearance of strength to attract opportunities and support that help them achieve genuine success. The role of authenticity in strategic deception. One of the most challenging aspects of applying Sun Tzu's principle effectively is maintaining authenticity while managing perceptions. People are sophisticated at detecting deception, and strategies that feel manipulative or dishonest are likely to backfire. The most successful practitioners of strategic perception management are those who find ways to be genuinely authentic while still controlling how others perceive their capabilities and intentions. They do not lie about their strengths and weaknesses, but they carefully choose what to emphasize and what to downplay. Warren Buffett's folksy persona works because it is genuinely rooted in his personality and values. He really does prefer simple pleasures and modest living, even though he could afford anything he wanted. His appearance of simplicity is authentic, even though it serves strategic purposes. Similarly, successful people who appear weak when strong often do so by emphasizing genuine aspects of their personality or situation that happen to make them appear less threatening. They might emphasize their uncertainty about specific decisions while downplaying their overall strategic sophistication, or highlight their collaborative instincts while minimizing their competitive drive. The goal is not to create a false persona, but to curate an authentic persona that serves your strategic objectives. This requires deep self-awareness and the ability to present different aspects of your genuine self in different contexts. Building your own strategic persona. Now that we have explored how some of the most successful people in the world have applied Sun Tzu's principle, let us consider how you can begin to develop your own strategic approach to managing perceptions. The first step is honest self-assessment. You need to understand your actual strengths and weaknesses, your genuine capabilities and limitations. You cannot effectively manage others' perceptions of your abilities if you do not have a clear understanding of what those abilities actually are. Next, you need to understand your competitive environment. Who are you competing with? What are their strengths and weaknesses? How do they currently perceive you? And how do those perceptions help or hurt your ability to achieve your objectives? Once you understand yourself and your environment, you can begin to develop a strategic approach to managing perceptions. This might involve emphasizing certain aspects of your personality or background while downplaying others. It might involve choosing when to reveal capabilities and when to keep them hidden. It might involve projecting confidence in areas where you are actually uncertain, or appearing humble in areas where you are actually quite strong. The key is to ensure that your strategic persona serves your long-term objectives rather than just making you feel good in the short term. Sometimes it is more effective to appear less impressive than you actually are if doing so helps you gather information, avoid unwanted attention, or position yourself for future opportunities. Remember that this is a long-term strategy that requires patience and discipline. The benefits of appearing weak when strong or strong when weak often do not become apparent until months or years after you begin implementing the strategy. You must be willing to sacrifice short-term ego gratification for long-term strategic advantage. The ethical dimensions of strategic deception. Before we continue, we must address the ethical implications of using strategic deception in your personal and professional life. There is a difference between managing perceptions strategically and engaging in harmful manipulation or outright deception. The most successful and sustainable applications of Sun Tzu's principle involve presenting authentic aspects of yourself in strategic ways rather than creating false personas or lying about your capabilities. The goal should be to create win-win situations where your strategic positioning benefits both you and the people you interact with. For example, appearing humble and curious when you are actually quite knowledgeable can make you more effective at learning from others and building relationships, which benefits everyone involved. Similarly, projecting confidence when you are actually uncertain can help you attract opportunities and support that ultimately benefit your team or organization. The key ethical guideline is to ensure that your strategic positioning does not involve harming others or taking advantage of their trust in ways that leave them worse off. The best applications of this principle create value for everyone involved, even if the benefits are not evenly distributed. You should also be prepared for the possibility that your strategic positioning will eventually be discovered and evaluated by others. If your approach would be seen as reasonable and ethical by people whose opinions you respect, then you are probably on solid ground. If you would be embarrassed or ashamed if your strategy were exposed, you should reconsider your approach. Advanced applications in different life contexts. The beauty of Sun Tzu's principle is that it can be applied across virtually every area of life, from intimate personal relationships to large-scale business negotiations. Let us explore some specific contexts where strategic perception management can be particularly powerful. In romantic relationships, appearing slightly less interested than you actually are can often increase the other person's interest and investment in the relationship. This is not about playing games or being dishonest, but rather about maintaining some mystery and avoiding the appearance of desperation that can be off-putting to potential partners. In family dynamics, sometimes appearing less capable or independent than you actually are can help maintain harmony and avoid triggering other family members' insecurities or competitive instincts. This can be particularly important when dealing with aging parents or siblings who might feel threatened by your success. In educational settings, strategic perception management can help you learn more effectively and build better relationships with teachers and classmates. Appearing curious and humble can encourage others to share knowledge and insights that they might withhold if they saw you as a threat or competitor. In professional networking situations, appearing less established or successful than you actually are can often lead to more meaningful connections and opportunities. People are generally more willing to help someone who appears to need their assistance than someone who appears to have already achieved everything they want. In creative endeavors, appearing less polished or professional than you actually are can sometimes help you connect with audiences who might be intimidated by obvious expertise. This is why many successful artists and writers cultivate personas that emphasize their relatability and authenticity rather than their technical skills. The digital age and perception management. The rise of social media and digital communication has created new opportunities and challenges for strategic perception management. On one hand, digital platforms give you unprecedented control over how you present yourself to the world. You can carefully curate your online presence to emphasize certain aspects of your personality and achievements while downplaying others. On the other hand, digital communication also creates new risks. Information that you share online can be preserved indefinitely and discovered by people you never intended to reach. Strategic positioning that works in one context might be counterproductive or embarrassing in another. The most successful digital age practitioners of Sun Tzu's principle maintain consistent personas across different platforms while adapting their messaging to different audiences. They understand that everything they post online becomes part of their permanent strategic positioning, so they are careful to ensure that their digital presence supports their long-term objectives. Some successful people have used social media to appear more accessible and relatable than their actual wealth and influence might suggest. They share behind-the-scenes glimpses of their lives, acknowledge their struggles and failures, and generally present themselves as regular people who happen to have achieved extraordinary success. Others have used digital platforms to project strength and confidence during periods of uncertainty or difficulty. They share success stories, express optimism about the future, and generally maintain positive, forward-looking personas even when facing significant challenges. The key in both cases is authenticity and consistency. Your digital persona should feel genuine and should align with how you present yourself in person. People are sophisticated at detecting inconsistencies between online and offline personas, and such inconsistencies can undermine your credibility and effectiveness. The compound effect of strategic positioning. One of the most powerful aspects of Sun Tzu's principle is that its effects compound over time. Small advantages in perception and positioning can grow into substantial advantages in resources, opportunities, and outcomes. When you consistently appear slightly less threatening than you actually are, people become more willing to share information with you, more likely to underestimate your competitive capabilities, and more inclined to offer you opportunities that they might withhold from more obvious competitors. Over time, these small advantages accumulate into significant strategic benefits. Similarly, when you project strength and confidence during periods of weakness, you buy yourself time to develop genuine capabilities while maintaining access to resources and opportunities that might disappear if your true situation were fully understood. The compound effect means that strategic positioning becomes more powerful the longer you maintain it consistently. People develop settled perceptions of your capabilities and intentions, and these perceptions influence how they interact with you across multiple contexts and over extended periods. This is why it is so important to think strategically about your long-term positioning rather than just optimizing for short-term tactical advantages. The perception management choices you make today will influence opportunities and relationships for years to come. Learning from failure. When strategic positioning backfires. Not every attempt at strategic perception management succeeds, and there are important lessons to be learned from failures and missteps. Understanding when and why these strategies backfire can help you apply them more effectively. One common failure mode is overplaying the strategy. If you appear too weak when you are actually strong, people may dismiss you entirely and fail to provide opportunities that you need to advance your objectives. If you appear too strong when you are actually weak, you may attract challenges that you are not prepared to handle. Another common problem is inconsistency. If your strategic positioning varies too much across different contexts or time periods, people will notice the inconsistencies and begin to question your authenticity and trustworthiness. Timing failures are also common. Maintaining an appearance of weakness for too long can cause you to miss opportunities to capitalize on your actual strengths. Revealing your strength too early can alert competitors and reduce your strategic advantages. Some people also fail to build genuine capabilities behind their strategic positioning. If you spend all your energy managing perceptions without developing real strengths, you will eventually be exposed when circumstances require you to demonstrate actual capabilities. The most successful practitioners of strategic positioning learn from these potential failure modes and adjust their approaches accordingly. They maintain careful balance between perception and reality, ensure consistency across contexts, time their revelations carefully, and never let perception management substitute for actual capability development. The future of strategic positioning. As our world becomes more connected and transparent, the nature of strategic positioning continues to evolve. Information travels faster, reputations can be built or destroyed more quickly, and the line between public and private personas becomes increasingly blurred. These changes create both opportunities and challenges for people who want to apply Sun Tzu's principle effectively. On one hand, digital platforms and global connectivity create new ways to manage perceptions and reach audiences. On the other hand, Increased transparency makes it harder to maintain strategic positioning that is not grounded in genuine authenticity. The most successful future practitioners of strategic positioning will likely be those who can maintain authenticity while still managing perceptions effectively. They will need to be more sophisticated about understanding different audiences and contexts, more careful about maintaining consistency across platforms and timeframes, and more focused on building genuine capabilities that support their strategic positioning. The fundamental principles behind Sun Tzu's wisdom will remain relevant, but their application will continue to evolve as technology and social structures change. The people who can adapt these timeless principles to new contexts and challenges will continue to gain significant advantages over those who rely on more obvious and direct approaches to competition and advancement. Taking action. Your next steps. If you have made it this far in this exploration of Sun Tzu's principle, you are clearly serious about understanding and applying strategic thinking to your own life. The question now is how to begin implementing these concepts in practical, sustainable ways. Start with small experiments in low-stakes situations. Practice appearing slightly less knowledgeable than you actually are in casual conversations and observe how people respond. Try projecting slightly more confidence than you feel in situations where you are genuinely uncertain and see how it affects the opportunities and support you receive. Pay attention to how successful people in your field manage their own perceptions and positioning. What aspects of their personalities do they emphasize? What do they downplay? How does their strategic positioning serve their larger objectives? Develop your own authentic strategic persona by identifying aspects of your genuine personality and background that can serve different strategic purposes in different contexts. Remember that the goal is not to create a false persona, but to curate your authentic self in ways that support your objectives. Most importantly, focus on building genuine capabilities and strengths while you experiment with strategic positioning. The most powerful applications of Sun Tzu's principle combine authentic perception management with real skill development and strategic thinking. Conclusion: the timeless power of strategic thinking. Sun Tzu's principle of appearing weak when strong and strong when weak has remained relevant for 25 centuries, because it addresses fundamental aspects of human psychology and strategic competition that transcend specific historical contexts or technological developments. The modern titans of business and industry who have applied this principle most effectively understand that true power often lies not in displaying your capabilities, but in controlling how others perceive and respond to those capabilities. They have used strategic positioning to gather intelligence, avoid unwanted attention, create opportunities, and achieve objectives that might have been impossible through more direct approaches. The beauty of this principle is that it can be scaled up or down to fit your specific circumstances and objectives. Whether you are trying to negotiate a better salary, build a business empire, or simply navigate the complex social dynamics of everyday life, the fundamental insights about perception and positioning remain valuable. Remember that strategic positioning is not about deception or manipulation, but about authentic self-presentation that serves your long-term objectives while creating value for others. The most successful practitioners of these principles are those who can maintain their integrity and authenticity while still thinking strategically about how they present themselves to the world. The choice is yours. You can continue to approach life and competition in obvious, direct ways that make your intentions and capabilities clear to everyone around you. Or you can begin to think more strategically about perception and positioning, using the timeless wisdom of Sun Tzu to create advantages that others cannot see or counter. The people who master these principles do not just achieve greater success. They achieve it more efficiently, with less direct conflict, and often while helping others achieve their objectives as well. They understand that the highest form of strategic thinking involves winning without fighting, achieving objectives without creating enemies, and building power without attracting the attention of those who might try to stop them. If you are still here, that means you are serious about changing your life. Comment "strategic mind" and let me know that you are ready to change your life. The principles we have discussed today are not just theoretical concepts to be admired from a distance. They are practical tools that can be applied immediately to create measurable improvements in your personal and professional effectiveness. The question is not whether these principles work. The question is whether you have the patience, discipline, and strategic thinking necessary to apply them consistently over time. The most successful people in the world have already answered that question for themselves. Now it is your turn to decide what kind of strategic thinker you want to become. The ancient wisdom of Sun Tzu offers us a path to success that does not depend on luck, connections, or circumstances beyond our control. It depends only on our willingness to think strategically, act authentically, and maintain the long-term perspective necessary to build genuine strength while managing how others perceive that strength. Your journey towards strategic mastery begins now. The only question is how far you are willing to go.